And then we're going to turn to your questions. And Rosie Pryor, who is the LCC board chair, thank you so much for being with us, has offered to pull the tickets. If I could ask you, Rosie, when we get to that point, to read the last three numbers and read three tickets at a time, and whoever raises their hand, we'll get the microphone to you. We'll ask you to share the number on your ticket so we can retire it. Give your name and maybe what part of the county you're from, and then share your question or your concern. And in so doing, if someone's speaking and you absolutely passionately disagree with them, 180 degrees, still let them have their say. And then when it's your turn, we ask the same respect from everyone else, so this can be a full First Amendment free speech zone like every community meeting in America should be. So with that, Taylor, are you here? Hi, Taylor. Taylor, and I didn't get a chance to talk to you before. I had to check on the pronunciation. La Prairie?
La Prairie.
La Prairie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Taylor is a Springfield high school senior. He is the senior class president. And he is part of a committee that is helping students get exposure to different potential colleges and therefore think about their track going forward out of high school.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
Well done. Welcome, and please share your comment or your question.
So I had a good question earlier about how scary and exciting looking for colleges and paying for them are. And then I was watching the news with my grandparents, and they brought up the Supreme Court blocking parts of Obamacare that have to do with birth control. And I know you're not part of the Supreme Court, obviously. But I was wondering if there was a way, like with the Employee Non-Discrimination Act and other acts that deal with controversial social issues, how Congress can better handle like religious exemptions and things that have to do with that nature.
Yeah, okay. Great. Taylor, thank you. And first, before I get to the birth control piece, let me share a little bit about the Employment Non-Discrimination Act. This act was a bill that first went before the U.S. Senate in 1996. And the Senate voted 49-50. And so it lost by one vote. Vice President Gore was presiding over the Senate, so he was the tiebreaker, had the 50th vote amendment. The 50th vote was Senator Pryor, the father of our current Senator Mark Pryor, who was visiting our current Senator Mark Pryor, who was a child at that point, was in the hospital. And no one envisioned at that point that it would be 17 years before this issue got to the floor of the Senate again. But after I was elected in 2009, and Senator Ted Kennedy, who championed this, led this fight, was very ill, he asked through his staff for me to carry the torch on this bill. And that was really an unexpected honor to be asked to carry a major piece of civil rights legislation. So I've had this little voice in my ear for the last several years. How do we get this done? And the result of this, I'll give you the shorter version here, is that it passed 2-to-1 out of many negotiations and conversations and one-on-one meetings, tons of things happening behind the scene. It passed more than 2-to-1 out of committee, including help from Senator Hatch of Utah. And by the way, Senator Gordon Smith played a critical role in this. I talked to him about helping on this issue, and he said he'd be glad to help, and he held conversations with some of his former colleagues. And so plaudits to him. And then it passed more than 2-to-1, 64-32 on the floor of the Senate. Substantial bipartisan vote. And now we need the House, Congress, to take up the Senate bill and simply have a vote, because I'm absolutely confident it will pass if it is considered in the House. So in that conversation, religious exemptions came to bear. And what we did is we based religious exemption there on Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And the reason we did that is there's a long string of adjudications so that everybody knows what every comma and word means. And that gave the confidence to bring together that bipartisan coalition. Every single issue in this world that bears upon something that has a religious connection has a slightly different angle to it. Now, the Supreme Court did not take action. One Supreme Court justice, Sotomayor, granted basically a stay while they consider whether to consider it. And so stay tuned. And I don't, I would have to do a little bit of thinking and to understand the nuances of this particular piece better to add more, other than this is an ongoing struggle of, if you are an employer, how much power do you get to take your religious view and use that as a framework for the experience of the employee? That's the tension involved in this, and that's the tension that the Supreme Court will be examining. Thank you. Thank you for coming today. Okay, Rosie, you're on.
So did you tell me you want two?
3 at a time, and
okay.
Just the last 3 numbers.
Okay, so the first one is 224, the second one is 901, and the last is 885.
Anybody have one? Yes.
I'm
Okay.
third.
Okay, great. That's fine. We'll just we'll